Y'all, it's your boy Easy, and on today's episode of Easy Opens, we're going to be taking a look at the Figma Pokemon Selene figure. Selene first appeared as the female player avatar character in Gen 7 of Pokemon, which was the Sun and Moon games, from 2016. Their name in Japan is Mizuki, which means beautiful moon. Their name in English is Selene, which is the name of the Greek goddess of the moon. She's from Kanto, but currently resides in the Alola region. And then this game character has a counterpart in the Pokemon Adventures manga named Moon, who is an expert pharmacist and skilled archer from Sinnoh. And this character of Moon looks a little more like Selene's Ultra Sun and Moon appearance, but they're believed to be the same character. So Figma's box art is always great and on point, but we're not here to talk about the box. Let's get this figure free from its plastic prison and see what we think about Selene. All right, so fresh out the box, this figure is pretty great. I am very happy with this line of Pokemon figures from Figma, and I kind of wish they would just keep making more of them and made them more readily available, and I would get them all. Fresh out the box, she feels fantastic. She looks awesome. She's got such a liveliness to her and her facial expression, and just, I don't know, she just looks like she's, I don't know, having a lot of fun. And so I love the colors on this figure. They just pop, and they just have a vibrance to them that just seems very fun and relaxed and just youthful, if that makes any sense. And yeah, I just really dig the plastic and the paint that they use. Something about it just really makes the figure come to life in a way that, I don't know, you just don't really think about. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way that the shorts are sculpted and the sleeves are sculpted to where there are shadows that appear on the arms and legs that give a three-dimensional element to the figure that really helps to make it pop even more so than it already does. Now, the first thing I usually look at whenever I get a Figma out of the box is their feet. And thankfully, Selene has pretty chunky feet. I mean, they're not super big, but they're like big tennis shoes. And, well, they almost look like rock climbing shoes or something like that. But yeah, that's always a big plus in my book, especially for Figma, because their figures tend to be very frail and thin. And if their feet also are that, then they're very difficult to pose and stand on their own. Now, thankfully, Figma usually includes a figure stand, which this figure also came with. But just in general, I'd rather not use the figure stand if I don't have to. And thankfully, I think her feet are big enough to where I might not need it as much as I do on some of their other figures. Now, having mentioned how frail and thin these figures are, yeah, this is also no exception. She is very tiny. However, there's quality and substance to her build that she doesn't feel like she's going to break. Just messing around with it, she's so much fun to play with and pose. There's just so much motion and range in their articulation that it feels fluid, and it doesn't feel like how some imports feel. Like you have to, they feel like work sometimes when you're trying to pose them, but she's just posing perfectly. And I'm very happy with this fresh out the box. So Selene comes with 2 interchangeable faceplates, 12 interchangeable hands, a shoulder bag, a Pokeball, a Z-ring, a figure stand, and then 3 small Pokemon figures of Rowlet, Litten, and Poplio, the 3 starters from Gen 7. And I almost forgot to mention that this figure comes with an exclusive 4th additional Pokemon figure of Rotom. All right, so now let's take a look at the articulation you're going to get out of Selene. So starting at the head, she's got 360 at the neck. She can look up a decent amount. She can look down a really good amount. She's got side to side on the head, so full range of motion in the neck. Just a ton of articulation there. She's got 360 at the shoulders, and so she's also got all kinds of articulation there that you can kind of just get her arms in some crazy poses. And Then she's got a swivel at the bicep. She also has double jointed. Actually, that's not double jointed. She has a joint there at the elbow. And then she has a joint at the wrist that allows for 360 and some front to back motion as well in the wrist. And then in the torso area, this is all one solid piece, I do believe, but she's got some articulation where she can bend back quite a bit, actually, and then forward just as much. And so you got a ton of motion there. Now, the thing with Figmas you got to remember is that sometimes these joints can pop out, but you can just pop them back in. And that, so don't get freaked out if this is like your first time messing with them. That's kind of how they're designed to be. But yeah, so moving on to the waist, she has 360. Well, no, I thought she did. She might be able to get 360. Mine's a little stuck there. I don't want to risk it. But she does have a lot of motion down in the waist. And then in her legs, she's got plenty of motion there. Oh, I just took her leg off. So now she's got a lot of motion there. And yeah, you can see how it's put together there, which is kind of freaky at first. But then you realize that, no, that's how all action figures are pretty much made. And so you just snap it back on, and there you go. She's got swivel at the thigh. She's got a thigh cut swivel there. She's got a joint in the knee, as well as an ankle rocker that has a ton of motion there. And then she's also got the toe joint. And if I'm not mistaken, that is all the articulation you're going to get out of Selene. So according to the internet, Selene is around 4'9" tall, and I couldn't find anything about how much she weighs. This figure stands at about 5 3/8 of an inch to the top of their hat, and then weighs around 1 ounce. Now let's see how she measures up to some other figures you might have in your collection. All right, here she is with NECA's Bert and Masters of the Universe, Masterverse Skeletor. Here she is with Hasbro's Fortnite Dark Meowscles and NECA's Return to New York 4-pack Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Leonardo. Here she is with Jada Toys Street Fighter 2 Cammy and SH Figuarts Senkocho Seiho Kamen Rider Kuga. Here she is with Hasbro's Marvel Legends Wolverine and Jada Toys Mega Man Iceman. Here she is with McFarlane's Multiverse Clock King and Super 7's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Donatello. Here she is with SH Figuarts Jesse and James. Here she is with SH Figuarts Ash and Bandai Model Kit Jigglypuff. Here she is with all the Pokemon that come with her. Here she is with an assortment of other small Pokemon. Here she is with an assortment of medium-sized Pokemon. Here she is with the epic battle Gyarados and the Snorlax Piggy Bank. Here she is with SH Figuarts Blastoise and Charizard. And here she is with Pokemon Select Golisopod and Typhlosion. And here she is with Figma's Gloria and Marnie. I'm a big fan of Figma / Goodsmile in all the lines that they do. I also really love this Pokemon line, just through and through. I love the figures, and then I love the extra Pokemon that we get. I just think they're fantastic. I kind of just wish that they would be more consistent with releasing more and more of them. However, given the price, I'm kind of glad they space them out. But that also doesn't mean that I still don't want them, because they look so good, and Selene is no different. She looks fantastic. Figma always does a great job bringing these characters to life, and Selene probably more than some of the other figures I've got, just given their facial expressions alone. There's a liveliness and a youthfulness that I've probably mentioned earlier in the review, but that still persists here at the end, like, if not amplified just by the more time that I got to pose and mess around with her. Like, she just exudes this like energy that's just really cool. And I love it because she brings really cool energy to scenes and photos and kind of changes everything, and it just enhances it and makes it better. And I just really dig that about this figure. That being said, I've just thoroughly enjoyed reviewing this figure just so much. She looks and feels fantastic. Like I probably said earlier in the review, the only issue that I have is that some of the space in the shoulder joints makes it look a little weird, but if you get her in the right pose, you don't really notice it. And it's kind of not so noticeable unless you're like looking for it, but depending on the pose, it's just something to like keep in mind. That's just a minor nitpick in my opinion. Figma almost always does an excellent job on giving us plenty of hands and a good amount of interchangeable faceplates, and this figure is no exception. The little Pokeballs are nice, but again, they are very tiny, and I'll probably not mess with them too much, but I'm glad they're there. The figure stands are always welcome and appreciated, and I totally had no idea that my favorite part of this figure was going to be the watermelon purse. Once I got it out and put it on her and just like was messing around, like I just was like, that's just the cutest thing I've ever seen. Like I absolutely love it. And then I started thinking about the other characters in this line. I'm like, you know what? I actually really like the bags on Marnie and Gloria as well. So who knew I had a thing for that? I don't know. But here we are. I did find it kind of annoying though, trying to pose her with it on, but that's a minor gripe. I mean, it's still really cool and I'm very happy with it. And I just really love the buddy Pokemon. Like, they look fantastic. Some of them have 1 to 2 points of articulation, which is really cool. But even if it's just a static pose, they're still really neat and really well done. And I absolutely love that they include them in these figures, and I just wish they would include more of them. And I also found that they're very sturdy. They're not cheap by any means. And I don't know, I just really dig that. But then back to Selene. Like I mentioned earlier, there's an element of excitement that comes from the figure's expressions and all of that, combined with the sculpt and different poses that's kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of hard to explain. She just makes a scene come to life and brings a ton of enjoyment in putting her in different situations and scenes. And it's just really fun when a figure can do that and it feels like it's doing the work for you. And I absolutely love that. She works extremely well with other figures in this line from Figma, as well as the SH Figuarts Pokemon figures. She also works great with the Jazzwares Pokemon too. Your mileage may vary though on other lines, but I think she works well enough with other video game characters from Figma and SH Figuarts. But overall, I think she can work with a lot of different lines just on a figure-to-figure basis. So your mileage may vary. The only complaints that I have are the shoulder gaps that I mentioned, and then there's the shirt tail bow on mine. It kept falling off, and it was super annoying. Keep that in mind. I don't know if that's just mine. It's probably an easy fix. I can probably glue it. It's a minor thing, and it's an easy fix, but it could also have just been that I was posing her a lot and trying to show the articulation and whatnot. And so if you're just going to like get her in a pose and then put her on a shelf, you might not have the same issue that I had with the shirt, but it's something to mention. And then for some reason, despite her large shoes, I found her a little harder to stand or hold a pose than I did Marnie or Gloria. And I was not expecting that. I thought with these big shoes that she would be kind of, you know, a lot easier to hold a stance and balance and all that. But I just had a lot of issues with her. But again, that's why Figma gives you figure stands. So can't really complain too much about that, but it's just something worth mentioning, at least in my opinion. So with that all being said, if you collect Pokemon trainers or just characters in general, you'll dig this figure and the Pokemon that they come with. If you're looking for a character that looks like an anime character or video game character, but isn't quite as distinct so she can blend in with other things you're doing, Selene is a good option for that. Or if you just want to pay for a very expensive but totally worth it watermelon slice bag accessory, Either way, I think you'll be happy with this Selene figure. All right, well, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button. And if you want to see more from me, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments, what accessory from an action figure did you find just oddly satisfying or like surprisingly stealing the show from the character, I guess, like the watermelon purse did for me. Let me know in the comments. And until then, else time.